This is the afternoon session of the Portland City Council. This is Wednesday, May 31st. I have a quick announcement before we get to the roll call. For those who are interested in the item to be discussed tomorrow, Thursday, June 1st, which is related to the 100% goal around community-wide renewable energy needs, that has been moved from 2 p.m. time certain to 3 p.m. So that will be tomorrow at 3 p.m., not 2 p.m. as originally announced. So with that, Carla, please call the roll.
Fish.
Here.
Udaly.
Here.
Saltzman. Fritz.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. And we've had a request to move item 606 to the front of the list. We have a number of staff members who've waited very patiently all day. Please read the item.
Item 606, authorized conveyance of city-owned property located at 1620 Northwest 14th Avenue to Innovative Housing, Inc., and funding in an amount not to exceed $11,434,111 to Innovative Housing, Inc. and its affiliate Raleigh Housing Limited Partnership for the construction of a new 93-unit affordable housing development.
Thank you. You want to come on up, Director Krieger?
I will lead off. Kurt Krieger, Housing Bureau Director, joined by Sarah Stevenson, Executive Director of Innovative Housing, and Julie Garver, Project Manager. Just as a way of framing the issue for you, we were last here in November, just before Thanksgiving, and the issue had to do with an appeal to a design commission approval with conditions that were deemed unacceptable by IHA and ultimately unacceptable to the City Council. Since then, Innovative Housing has been working diligently to perfect the working drawings and to arrange for the final financing of the project. I would underscore that the design architect, Alex Salazar, supported by LRS Architects, has been working for the last several months on this project. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that PBOT was helpful in this process because it involved a lot of utility coordination and some exceptions to existing policy, and that the Bureau of Development Services and Rebecca Essaw's crew has been extremely helpful. I'd also like to recognize that the site was acquired by the Housing Bureau for $1.2 million, a little bit less than its current value of $1.9 million in 2015. And this was a site acquired from Hoyt Street Properties under duress to help fulfill obligations for affordable housing in the River District. Javier Mina was the director of the Housing Bureau at the time that the site was acquired, and he was supported by Carl Dinkelspiel, our housing finance manager, and John Marshall, who is our project manager. The other thing that I think is important to mention is that Innovative Housing, Inc. has effectively increased the density of the property through a density transfer of PNCA's historic National Register property in the neighborhood. So we were able to achieve an additional 16 affordable units over and above what they originally proposed in the 2015 proposal that they proffered to the Housing Bureau. $11.4 million is a lot of money, but this also leverages additional resources. The total project cost is some $35.8 million, which includes financial support from Wells Fargo, Raymond James, Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance, Innovative Housing itself, which has contributed a portion of its developer's fee to the project, and HUD through Home Forward, because there are some project-based rental assistance vouchers attached to this particular project. And the real good news story here is that we're supporting homeless families in one of the most attractive neighborhoods of Portland, the Pearl, and people who are working in the district. And I'll let Sarah and Julie finish.
So Julie is our Director of Housing Development, and she's going to show you some slides and talk about some of the building amenities first, and then we'll shift over to me and I'll talk about the services we're going to provide our residents and why, a little bit more about why we think this is going to be such a great place for families to thrive and succeed. Or maybe I will go first.
Hibernation.
Okay, while we get the slides up, maybe I will go first. So based on our current portfolio and our experience housing families in Portland, we're anticipating that these 93 units will house up probably over 300 people each year, and that at least half of those will be children. We expect our average household income to be right around 30% of area median. That's based on our current family portfolio, even though many of the units in this building will be set aside for households that earn up to 50 and 60%. It is more typical that we house lower income households. And as Kurt said, 45 of the units will be set aside for families that earn no more than 30%. 40 of those households will be coming directly out of homelessness. So that helps bring down the average income of the households. But we do find that most families we house struggle significantly, not only with income, but also with some other challenges. So we find that in order to help them succeed and stay stable in their housing, we really need to bring wraparound services. So in addition to our partnership with Multnomah County, who will be referring the homeless families, and with Join and Human Solutions and many of the other organizations that provide case management services, which is, much more comprehensive alcohol and drug counseling, different things that families might need. We provide resident services on site. We will have a full-time staff person dedicated to this building, not only to serve the homeless families, but all 93 of our households. Our basic resident service program includes orientations and basic needs assessments. Our first goal is housing stability, and part of that is making sure that everyone's basic needs are met. So we do a lot of information and resource referrals. We have a lot of partnerships with other service organizations throughout Portland. We do a lot of direct service and advocacy. We find that many families need assistance accessing benefits that they are entitled to, but because of bureaucratic systems, they can use some help. One of our main goals and the biggest push that we work on is eviction prevention. So anytime that a household is at risk of eviction, whether for non-payment of rent or any behavioral issue or lease violation, our resident service coordinators step in right away. We waive late fees if people will sit down and do a budgeting session and start doing some financial education with us. And we also help make connections to different service providers and resources if there are lease violations that we can help address. Are you ready?
I'm ready to do it without the slides.
Okay, well then I'll say just a couple things. We also do a lot of tenant education, a lot of community building, and we have some special programs that we envision will bring to bear on this building, especially around holistic family services and youth programming, academic support, homework help, teen mentoring program. We have a strong college prep program that we try to. One of our goals around our youth programming is high school graduation. We think that's a huge, significant way to help break the cycle of poverty, is to get kids through high school and into that next step. So we will bring all of those services to bear, and then the rest of our services will be tailored to the building. So we will see what people need and what they want, and then we will deliver that.
Well, we may or may not have slides for you, but I'll try to do a word picture. We are really excited about this building and everything it's going to bring to families. When you enter the building, on the ground floor, you have a generous lobby, offices, and a coffee shop, or a neighborhood retail space, which the neighborhood and design review really encouraged us to do. So it'll be nice to have that small space interactive with the neighborhood. On the second floor is where our secure community space for the building is going to be housed, and it will have a large community room that has a dividing door so it can be divided into smaller meetings. It has a community kitchen there. It has an indoor-outdoor play area that will take care of kids in the inclement weather, but also has a nice door that raises out to an outdoor courtyard on the second floor that'll have play equipment. And then the laundry room is right there, integral in the program too, so that parents and kids can all be in the same space and folks can be supervised. Nice bike room. And then moving up to the 12th floor, we have a small roof deck, 750 square foot of roof deck to be on the 12th floor with nice views. And the roof itself will have solar panels and green roof. So the building is really built to last, concrete and steel, so it's going to be there over generations and provide a lot of nice amenities for residents. Any questions for us?
Questions, colleagues?
I just
Commissioner
have
Fritz?
to note that it's really unfortunate that people who come and yell at us for not doing anything for people who live outside were not here to hear that presentation, because it really, I appreciate the work that you're doing, Mary. I appreciate your leadership of the Housing Bureau. And this is what I know, we've got lots of staff who work on this stuff day in, day out. So thank you.
Commissioner Fish?
So Director Krieger, the good news is that almost half the units are targeted to the people that have the greatest need in our community. And we're accomplishing that by pairing the units with Section 8 vouchers. So I guess we should acknowledge Home Forward. This is part of the allocation that they made to ensure that we could get deeply affordable housing.
It is indeed. These are project-based rental assistance vouchers that were allocated at the outset.
40 of them, yes.
So those are families who will be paying 1/3 of their income for rent and utilities under the payment standards established by Home Forward. And if their income declines, their rent will therefore decline proportionately, and the federal government will pay the difference.
And this just, maybe this is obvious, but we're talking about a lot of units for very low-income people, and many of them families coming off the streets, so coming out of homelessness, which is great. And and you've talked about the wraparound services on site. So do these qualify as permanent supportive housing units, or are they functionally the equivalent?
Well, I'm not sure that you're providing the complete suite of services, but you're matching people to their needs.
Right.
So to the extent that they have mental health treatment service needs, they're getting that support. So we would consider these permanent supportive housing units. The other thing that it's important to underscore is that this is immediately across the street to the north of Ramona.
Yes.
And there's an early childhood education center at Ramona. So within 60 feet, people are going to have some early childhood education services. And while this is 100% affordable, there's market rate housing immediately adjacent in the neighborhood. To the east is Abigail, which includes market rate units. The bridge opened last summer.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed income neighborhood, and we're pleased that this was able to proceed.
You know,
And can I
most of that new development happened once the city finished the work on the fields. And that actually became the catalyst both for the work that Hoyt Street did, and then Bridge came along and a lot of the other stuff. I don't remember the last time we had a project that came back to us with almost half the units at 0 to 30. We talk about wanting to get deeply affordable units, but I don't remember, Kurt, the last time we had something with these numbers.
We're normally getting, between 7 and 15% at that level. This is a much richer sort of mix, and it's been the dedicated sort of concentration of innovative housing to reach those numbers. It's one of the reasons why the financing is taking this long.
We had someone this morning, to Commissioner Fritz's point, who was here, who spoke during the public comment, and she said we should be distributing affordable housing in neighborhoods across the city, and we talked about what it is to be in a high opportunity area. To have family-friendly housing, deeply affordable in the Pearl, is about as good as you can get. And the fact that it's next to the Ramona, where there's a school that may be appropriate for the kids, within walking distance to a park. I'm very excited about this, so congratulations.
Thank you. It's a great opportunity. One thing I should mention, there are 32 three-bedroom units, 32 two-bedroom units, and a 32-ish one-bedroom units. So it's skewed towards very large units also. So it really is a family property. We didn't mention that. But it's harder to build bigger, so I wanted to make sure you know they're big units.
Commissioner Fritz?
How do you choose who gets to be there?
Ooh, tough question.
Well, we don't choose, Fair Housing would dictate how we accept applications. The 40 homeless families will be referred through the Multnomah County Homeless Family Continuum, so the county will refer those that get to access the project-based vouchers.
I'd be really, not now obviously, like to know more details about how do they make sure that the demographics of the people in this new building represent the demographics of our community as a whole.
The Fair Housing Act has something to say about that, and would limit. But the good news is the Section 8 wait list, for example, is heavily weighted towards older, disabled, people of color, and people in poverty. So that's a more diverse list. But the Fair Housing Act has something to say about, if you will, cherry picking what tenants come into these units.
Right. We
You
don't
have
really
to
get to choose, but we do get to do outreach, and we do get to publicize and let people know about housing opportunity. And so that does fall to us in the lease-up process.
And I think what we've done in the past is, say, having the Urban League help with that outreach.
Exactly.
This
We've
is
got
like-
partners that we make sure get the pre-applications as soon as we start pre-leasing. We do work with a lot of partners
Like
to get the word out.
And some of you
Immigrant
have heard
Refugee
about
Community Association, for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great, thank you.
the no-app fee. Tyrone Pools Company has been retained by the Housing Bureau so that in the future, vacancies in the entire permanent affordable realm of some 14,000 units today vacancies will be placed through that online service. People won't be paying an application fee, and that allows us a great deal of selection so that individuals can have their own project profile and can select from available vacant units within the community at any given point in time. So people with disabilities, people of various races and ethnicities, people with children will all essentially have a project profile, and the city is underwriting the cost of no app fee for that purpose.
And you just reminded me of one other thing, and that is what percentage of the units are required to be ADA accessible under the housing laws?
You have the state standard of, was it?
Yeah, we have, we're required to have 5%, and we'll have 10% built as accessible, and all of them will be adaptable
Great,
and visitable.
thank you.
We'll have 2 elevators in the project.
So if I think I just showed that the state rule is 5%, this is going to be 10% plus all adaptable.
And we do have a partnership with Community Vision also, and we, just portfolio-wide, we work with them to let them know whenever we have ADA units available, because they are hard to find.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
So I'll just throw my accolades onto the table as well. I think this is an amazing partnership, and I want to acknowledge that a lot of this work started when Commissioner Saltzman was the Housing Commissioner. He's not here, but I think it's important for me to certainly acknowledge that as the Housing Commissioner come lately. This is a fabulous partnership, and I think one of the reasons it is so successful is all these different organizations coming together. You have the project sponsor, Innovative Housing, Inc. Home Forward, as has been discussed, has provided the Section 8 vouchers. IHI is partnering with the Multnomah County Homelessness Services, so we've got the county throwing their wholehearted support and infrastructure and capacity behind this important effort. And of course, we've got Human Solutions and Join and others who are working with us to make sure that this is a successful program. My thinking is we could fill this entire program very, very, very quickly, particularly because, as Commissioner Fish noted, there is such a deep level of affordability that's built into this model. And as Commissioner Fritz mentioned, there's a tremendous bias in favor of family units. And I think it's great, and I hope it's really well received by the community. I think people are going to see this as a truly positive, family-friendly addition to the neighborhood. And there are always challenges associated with that, but I think with this partnership and with the strength of the proposal, I think it has that very, very high chance of likelihood and success. So I want to thank you all for that as well. Are there any other questions before we get to public testimony?
Yes,
We'll let
we-
you guys take a break for a bit. And
you.
do we have a couple people?
Yes, 2 people, Mary
good.
Sipe and Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
Very good.
Hello,
Hello.
again.
Thank you.
As you all know, the whole reason that we have this project.
Name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Sipe. Is because of the, what I want to say, the vision of the city when the Pearl District was being developed. And this land that was deemed worthless was practically given to a developer by the city to create the Portland Pearl District. But one of the things that they put in the requirements was that it was either 30 or 35%. I think it was 35% of the housing that was put in this development would be affordable housing. And the reason that the city purchased and was able to purchase this particular lot, known as Block 26, from Hoyt Street Properties was because, according to the agreement, they had not met that threshold of affordable housing. And so the city was able to purchase this lot at a discount, and fortunately, Innovative Housing has stepped up to the plate and is going to provide us with another income-restricted or low-income affordable housing, whatever you want to call it. I do wonder, Hoyt Street has just 3 blocks left in this area. They have Block 23, Block 24, and Block 29. And they just announced plans for Block 29 they're going to build, because it's directly under the 405 bridge. And these lots are right up against the railroad tracks as well. They're going to turn, on Lot 29, they're going to build a storage facility. They are also looking at senior housing at Block 23. Now, I know that's not going to be affordable senior housing. And as you know, I happen to live in one of the income-restricted projects, and I've spoken before about the need for this type of housing for seniors. And I just want to reiterate that and also kind of throw a pitch out to Innovative Housing. I think it's wonderful that we are building this community in this area for low-income families. But we also do have a very neglected segment of the population that are seniors that are living on strictly Social Security, on fixed incomes, with no opportunity, literally no opportunity to increase their incomes. And so I would like to encourage the city to look and see, do they have the opportunity to purchase another piece of property from Hoyt Street before it's all gone? So.
Great question, Mary, and if I could just reflect for a moment, I want to assure you that the commitment to an age-friendly city is more than just a hollow commitment, and there are, in fact, projects we're sketching out right now with a focus on intergenerational housing. And so I just want to second what you're saying. I absolutely agree with you that we cannot neglect an aging population, particularly an aging population with declining real incomes in this environment. Right. And so, well said, and
thank you.
I agree with you.
If you need a citizen representative to help with any of that, you know where to find me.
Thanks,
and I would be more than happy to participate in any way that I can to help that along.
You know, we have an oversight body that we started called the PHAC, the Portland Housing Advisory Commission, and I think you'd be an outstanding member of that. And I hope you'll talk to Kurt about just knowing about future vacancies, because that's the body that advises the Bureau on an ongoing basis. And given your interest and expertise, I think you'd be terrific.
Oh, thank you. I really would appreciate that opportunity, and I'll talk to Kurt.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Charles Bridgecrane Johnson. And, you know, it's great property. I think that it's easier to have more enthusiasm for this, maybe just because of its size and the family reach, than it was for the Erickson, which I think is the last one that really involved a substantial amount of city money, I think, before you were here. I do think that when we look at, I know there's another agenda item coming up with bond investment, that we're eventually going to need some kind of metric, a tool to tell us about bang for the buck, and maybe ways to incentivize developers to give us projects like these that are, you know, 100% of the units are below 80% MFI. Find out what Catholic Charities was able to do. I don't think they even had the help of the tax crediting investment from Wells Fargo and stuff like that, so that we get more lots with these buildings that are just loaded below 80% MFI. The other thing that was mentioned is the
Home Forward to the Housing Bureau's use of no app fee. Ideally, these types of specialized investment vehicles can only reach a small portion of the people that need to get housed. So I hope that in whatever's going on with no app fee, you can find a way to incentivize large-scale landlords, even perhaps less popular with some of us, people like APM and stuff like that. If there can be a financial incentive tool, whether it's an adjustment, maybe a break on the relocation fee or something, so that some of the very large portfolio property owners will be on no app fee instead of having that really prohibitive revenue. It's actually a screening tool. Application fees can be a screening tool to screen out what some property managers consider less desirable. So I hope we'll see some work in that area as well. Thank you.
Can I make one little pitch I had a few seconds left, to Innovative Housing, to please not use the impact hammer pile driver on the building?
Kurt, can you come back for a sec? Just, Director Krieger, can you come back for 1 sec? I neglected to ask, just to clarify, the affordability covenant here lasts 60 or 90?
This is a 60 years. We are migrating to 99 years, but this was procured in 2015 before that new standard was set, and I've been honoring those prior agreements.
And just to be clear, of the total financing, we're providing about a third, which means we're helping to leverage tax credits and private equity and debt and other sources to make this deal work.
Yeah, it's a 3-to-1 leverage. We're gaining $2 of outside money for every $1 of city money invested in the project. You took up the short-term rental measure earlier today. When I was initially asked to quantify the number of units lost and came up with the 1,000 units, I had said then that the replacement cost for those was about $385 a unit, and that's what this costs. This is a step in the right direction, certainly.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions for the director? Any further comment? Please call the roll.
Fish,
Well, I'm very, very pleased and proud to support this. It meets so many of the city's goals. It serves the poorest of the poor within our community and with a focus on people who've experienced homelessness and want to get back on their feet. It's in a high opportunity area, which means we're investing in a place that low income, moderate income, wealthy households would like to live. And so it advances our goal of giving people meaningful choice. It's a fantastic leverage. And the partnership both with the city, the county, Home Forward, and IHI is the way we do our best work. So I'm very pleased with that. Not that long ago, we would have some people here testifying and objecting to the cost of this project per unit. And the council has pretty consistently, and particularly under Dan's leadership at the Housing Bureau, pointed out that there is a cost of building housing for the long term that's high quality and that serves the needs of people. And I'll just close by saying, when we invest in beautiful libraries, we rarely have people come out and say we're spending public money recklessly and building a beautiful library. When we build beautiful train stations and public amenities, people usually don't come out and say you're wasting money on that. When we invest in beautiful parks, people usually come and celebrate the fact and not criticize us. I'd like to think that we have the same pride in investing public resources in long-term affordable housing, which is part of the asset base of a healthy community. And I, for one, am pleased to make that investment. So thank you for your good work, Kurt, and the Bureau. And thank you, Innovative Housing, for delivering another terrific project. Aye.
Udaley.
Thank you for the presentation and your hard work. I am, of course, very excited about this project and especially happy to hear that you have 100% visitability and 100% adaptability and the partnership with Community Visions, because as short as we are in affordable housing, we're even, perhaps even shorter on accessible housing. Aye.
Fritz.
Well, thanks to everybody involved. I was particularly happy to hear about the community space, both indoor and outdoor. And that's one of the things that raises the cost of the whole development, because obviously those don't count under the per unit, but it's the thing that makes a community instead of just a project. So thank you for doing that. Aye.
Wheeler.
Great project, thanks. Aye, the ordinance is passed, thank you. Next item.
597, authorized contract with CH2M Hill to provide planning and project development services for the Central City Multimodal Project not to exceed $590,696.
Very good. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm Gabe Graff with the Portland Bureau of Transportation. I've got a brief presentation here. Thank you. I'm here today to ask you to authorize this contract with CH2M to provide planning and project development support to this project, which seeks to make getting around to and around the Central City safer, easier, and more convenient by foot, bike, transit, through planning, prioritizing, and constructing active transportation projects. I'll provide a quick background on the project and share our schedule and budget and answer any questions you might have. The Council nominated this project for Metro's Regional Flexible Fund Program in 2013, and a $6 million grant was approved and included in the 2016-2018 STIP, or Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. And in August of last year, Council authorized an IGA with the Oregon Department of Transportation, programming the first $852,000 of this funding for the planning and development phase. In this phase of the project, we seek to develop, refine, and prioritize active transportation projects using the Central City 2035 plan as a foundation. Our project area matches that of the Central City 2035 plan boundary. Excuse me. And we will focus on making it easier and safer and more convenient to get to and around the Central City by transit, bike, foot, or mobility device. Making the most efficient use of our right-of-way, encouraging the most efficient modes of travel while preserving freight and personal vehicle access and mobility. When we applied for the funds, PBOT identified 3 key issues we sought to address. Safety, half of the high crash intersections for people walking or biking are in the Central City. The lack of a clear bike network. People biking into our Central City and downtown often feel like they're left behind and not sure where they should be. And on the other side, people driving in our Central City often feel like there's cyclists everywhere and they're not sure where to expect them. And then finally, a lack of clarity on the Bureau's strategy for active transportation improvements in the Central City, particularly for the bike network, a concern that we weren't looking at the whole picture. And then since then, of course, growth has emerged as an additional priority. Central City is the densest concentration of people and jobs in the state. This economic success brings transportation challenges. How can we safely and efficiently get people to and from the Central City to the new jobs, the cultural amenities, the dining, the retail? So this is a significant investment in our vision for how to do that and support that growth. What might look like, we'll be looking at these next generation multimodal infrastructure that provide clear separation for people walking, biking, and driving so everyone knows where they should be. And then, of course, we'll also be looking at how to facilitate more trips in and out of the Central City. Transit priority projects such as this drawing, which illustrates a bus queue jump, may prove key to this effort. And then due to the complexity and the increasing demands of the transportation infrastructure in the Central City, we issued this RFP for consultant services to assist us in this phase. CH2M's proposal was the strongest of the 3 received, and will provide a broad array of expertise that will support from experts at Alta Planning and Design, DCAS and Associates, Brink Communications, Design and Culture Lab, and Enviro Issues for public and stakeholder involvement. Total contract amount is $590,696, including $98,785 in contingency tasks. We have a 13-month schedule, which you can see here. And an exciting aspect of this project is the funding we have includes this planning and development phase, but then also funding for capital construction. So once our 13 months of planning and development are complete, we will be moving into the design and construction of actual improvements in the Central City. The end result of this phase will be a prioritized project list. So you can see here our project budget, we have $9 million, 8.04 for design and construction. At the end of this planning and development phase, we will bring to council a prioritized project list that's been vetted by our stakeholder process. And the first tier of projects will fit within that 8.04 million that we have available. We'll also bring a second tier of projects that we'd hope to construct within the near term, like a 5-year window, and a third tier that we considered but hadn't advanced. As I said, primarily the funding is from this federal funds via Metro, the Regional Flexible Fund Program, but we're also using funding allocated to the project from Fixing Our Streets, the gas tax. Any questions you might have?
Questions? Commissioner Fritz, then Commissioner Fish.
Oh, I just have a scrivener's error, if you'd accept it. That's just CH2M now, it's not Hill. So if we could do that. And while I'm at it, Carla, on the consent agenda, there was Portland Community Media, which is now Open Signal. So
Sorry, I think that's how they submitted it.
we're all getting used to them. I just,
Yeah.
you know. Sounds like a great project, though. And I've been really impressed with the TriMet drivers. When we first started doing them all downtown with light rail and everything, I thought there's no way that we're going to be able to do that. But now, on both the MAX and the bus, the drivers know what they're doing. There was, I have the most grounded office in City Hall because it's right at the level. And there was an accident, a crash last week when somebody tried to turn right where it very clearly says, do not turn right. So to the extent that we're going to make it even clearer, where people are supposed to be, and then to encourage those who are not familiar with it to perhaps use different routes, I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you. I have a question. Now that I do a lot more walking downtown, I'm shocked at actually what I observe. And this morning, I almost got run over as someone made a turn going up the wrong way on the street.
Sorry about that, Commissioner.
He was in a rush. I don't judge. But I do think our downtown, as it's getting more congested, and some of the streets are harder to navigate. And out-of-town people that don't realize, like, once you get on the bus mall, you can't make those right turns, and for example, or at least if you do it, it's very, very hazardous because you might get hit by a bus or a MAX. But I want to ask you another question, which is, I fully support this and the whole concept of trying to make all the pieces work. And, in the last election cycle, a lot of people talked about, tackling congestion in our city and figuring out how you can do that. And I welcome it. The challenge is we can do our piece, but there's so many other pieces that impact this problem. And the one I'll just cite to that I had some challenges with yesterday is the loss of 4 lanes on the Morrison Bridge. So, yesterday I need to get from City Hall to Mississippi in order to meet with a friend from the Rebuilding Center. And I encountered 4 failed intersections getting on the Morrison Bridge. And so I started thinking they were failed because everybody was jumping the yellow to get through the intersection. And it didn't matter, everybody. So they were just failed, and you couldn't move. And you couldn't get on the Morrison. So it took me over an hour to get from City Hall to Mississippi. And the question I wanted to ask is, at what point do we need to consider having people at those intersections, at these critical places where they're failed intersections, when you have this confluence of things happening, construction, bridge work, and others, so that there's actually, like every other city you visit, someone who's managing the traffic and helping to deal with the chaos, particularly at rush hour.
You mean a traffic cop?
Like a traffic cop. Because there are certain places that are worse than others because just of the bridge work and the construction. And I understand there's a cost, so probably the answer is there's a cost. But in other cities that I visited, Europe and in this country, at rush hour and some of those places, you'll have a traffic cop helping people navigate. We don't usually do that. The closest thing we have, ironically, is when TriMet rerouted the streetcar and did some MAX work. I've actually never seen so many traffic cops at every intersection in the city. And in fact, they were so conscientious at the intersections I walked by, they had 3 people just standing around managing the traffic, telling you couldn't walk, you couldn't, traverse or managing. So I guess, so the question is, under what circumstances would we consider having a human being manage the traffic at some of these failed intersections?
Well, I don't know if I can speak for the Bureau on this, but I think generally when we have construction projects or that are, impacting regular routes of travel and people are having to make detours and take other routes, that's a good time to be providing people with additional direction.
Do we have such people?
Well, we have, we have a lot of construction projects going on this summer.
No, but does PBOT, does PBOT have a core of people that are traffic control folks who are trained, who can do that?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
It's just interesting. Morrison Bridge losing 4 lanes is a significant event, and I guess it would also be helpful if there's a sign. I should have known this, and I have to use Google more effectively, but there's actually no sign telling you that you should beware taking the right turn off of 4th because you're about to hit a mess. I wonder if, and you're not the right person to put this question to. I'll take it up with Leah, but I wonder if at some point, just from a public safety point of view, we should have folks who are in those intersections.
We have recharted an effort that I'm aware of that maps all of the construction projects, Get Around Portland. That's on our website now. So
I think my
so
map.
Google or the PBOT's website can
Yeah.
give you a little bit more heads up. But
No, I think my app would probably crash from all the inputs. It's a challenging time. It's a
Yes.
good thing. We've got cranes, we've got all this activity, but we do have a lot of failed intersections, and that creates a lot of more hazards for people. And I would say, forget about me spending an hour going what's normally a 10-minute trip. I notice that for pedestrians, it's extremely dangerous. And that would be, I think, a primary reason to have a person managing the traffic. But I'll take that up.
thank you.
Commissioner, as a former flag girl on the trolley, with the waterfront trolley, I would volunteer to be your personal flag girl, but this new job is just killing me. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a tough week. So this is the beginning stages, correct?
Correct.
Because my concern off the bat is I don't see anything about accessibility for people with mobility challenges, sight impairments, et cetera. Nothing real specific. I see accessible, I see removing barriers, and I just want to put my pitch in there that when you form that stakeholder committee, that's going to include advocates from the disability community, because if we should really be applying universal design principles to projects like this so they are the most accessible to the most people right off the bat, which makes them great for everybody.
Thank you.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'll note that one of the strategies we're using for this project, because the geography is so large, is to, rather than a sort of traditional stakeholder advisory committee like we've used for most PBOT projects, we'll have what we're calling a sounding board based off of a model in Seattle. So it'll be a group that will help refer us to other people so that we can have a project that a body that can hopefully wears lots of different hats for the central city. But then when we get down to specific design questions on particular streets, we can really bring in the people who are stand to benefit or be impacted or might be using it. So,
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Is there any public testimony?
I believe one person is still left, Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
Very good.
Thank you.
We should be so lucky.
The sound travels under the. I could just-
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
How you
My name is not Jesse Spromberg, but even though we scared Hill off of the CH2M name, there's still, the newer commissioners might not be as familiarized with the newest commissioner and the mayor might not know that some of us who are still insistent that under no authority, city authority or state authority, will there be fluoride in the Portland water, are also no fans of CH2M Hill and the tightness there between Randy Leonard and some things that went on in the water department before y'all's time. On this particular work that CH2M will be doing, I also maybe share some concerns that Commissioner Daly raised, and that there's maybe an equity problem here for people with disabilities. I'm by no means an expert on disabled person mobility, but one thing I notice is when I go through the city, it's very strange which crosswalks have audible assistance and which do not. Now, sometimes I think there may be a guideline that non-four-way intersections, such as Burnside and 18th, 19th over by the Timber Stadium, when you have an intersection that's an unstandard shape, it's very hard for a person that has trained hearing to know what's going on in the intersection, whereas a lot of people, when they get to a normal four-way intersection, can just listen. They don't need something going or whatever the audible cue is. But I think that improving equity, that even though this is close to the finalization of the proposal, that maybe you all connect with your favorite person on PCOD and see where there's room to tighten this up, so that for our $500,000 to CH2M, people that are participating in PCOD and representing that community can make sure that their voice about safety is getting heard. And also, I think it's beyond the scope of CH2M's work, but I think that, I don't know where it is, planning and sustainability or PBOT, but the idea that intersections fail, and I don't think they need to be police. They could be types of PBOT employees that could just be standing there in the intersection and see, I've got to encourage this car to move so that the other car can use its green light, may, as our city grows, become necessary. I'm sure some tech people will tell us, no, there's a better way. But either we need to have tech people jobs figuring it out, or the next generation of Commissioner Daly flag girl people at the intersection making sure that the red and green get obeyed, or people know how they have to divert. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any
Okay.
further public testimony? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Fish,
Thank you for the presentation. Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the ordinance is passed. Thank you. Next item, please.
599, accept bid of Biohabitats, Inc. for the Sandy River Engineered Log Jams Project for $1,348,176.
Very good. Why don't you come on up? I'll just let you jump right in. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Larry Palat from Procurement Services. You have before you the procurement report recommending a contract award to Biohabitats, Inc. for the Sandy River Engineered Log Jams Project for $1,348,176. The original engineer's estimate on this project was $2.3 million, and the Bureau's confidence level was moderate. On November 9, 2016, Council approved the ordinance 18813 for procurement services to competitively solicit the Sandy River Engineered Log Jams Project. The project was advertised in the city's electronic procurement system, and bids were opened on February 14, 2017. 2 bids were received in response to the solicitation, and Biohabitats, Inc. is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder at $1,348,176, which, after significant adjustments based on project refinement, is minimally under the adjusted engineer's estimate. Portland Water Bureau, along with Procurement Services, identified an aspirational goal for certified DMW ESB subcontractor and supplier utilization of 20% of the hard construction costs. There is a total of $87,000, or 6.45% of DMW ESB subcontract participation, apportioned as follows. DBE, $22,000 doing trucking and flagging, and ESB, $65,000 for trucking. Biohabitats, Inc. is located in Portland, Oregon, is not a state-certified DMW ESB contractor. They do have a current City of Portland business tax registration, and they are in full compliance with the city's contract requirements. The total participation of certified firms for this project, including the non-certified general contractor, is $87,000, which is only 6.45%. The primary scopes of work involved in this project are highly specialized in-water work with very few firms available in the area. Significant outreach was done to involve as many certified firms as possible in the available divisions of work, If the council has any other questions concerning the project, there are representatives from Portland Water Bureau and the contractor here.
So I have just a quick question. When a confidence level is moderate, it's not unusual for us to see the bids come in above the estimate. This is one of those rarities where we had a moderate confidence level, which I understand is heavily prescribed by sort of the standards that we use, and yet the bid came in 41% below the estimate. Do we have a sense of why we are the beneficiary of such good fortune?
Part of that is significant project refinement as we went through the thing. And another piece of this is this particular firm is doing similar work in the same waterway for other agencies, which has allowed us to, there's a continuity of operations type of benefit to this whole project. So as things move forward, the estimate could get more and more closely refined, the project could become more defined, and then cost came in essentially what it's going to take to do the project.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you. So in the impact statement, it says there was a conclusion it was one primary factor that contributed to the project coming in under budget. And what was that one primary?
Steve Kuchis from Portland Water Bureau is here. I believe it's the thought process of continuity. Steve?
Steve, thank you for being with us most of the day.
Good afternoon. Steve Kuchis. I'm the Environmental Compliance Manager of the Water Bureau and also the project manager of the Habitat Conservation Plan that we've talked to with council, and this is one project underneath that overall program. Since we turned in the engineering estimate and approached council in November, we did some serious head scratching about how we met our biological goals for this project, and we refined that and reduced the amount of work. Therefore, when we sent it out to bid, it was a much tighter project to still reach our initial goals, but it came in with less money. And there is some saving of effort because this contractor is doing work on 2 different project sites on the Sandy River. So there are some cost savings with demobilization and mobilization costs that would be incurred by this project activity.
That's helpful, but the impact statement says we've come to the conclusion there was one primary factor that contributed to the project coming in. So what was that one primary factor?
A reduce of scope for the lessening of excavation for the work.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. And we will get a final report on this project when it's done, right?
Oh, yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
you will.
And
And
if-
there will be press and there'll be a lot of attention for this project.
Good. And the code requires that the low bidder come back to council for an increase of 25% or more, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I will be looking specifically for this one, and I've been concerned for a long time that sometimes companies put in a low bid and then there's more and more things come up, and so it ends up that they wouldn't have been the low bidder if we'd know what the final cost was going to be. So I realize that everybody's making an educated guess at this point, but I'd like it specifically called out when it comes back. When will it be completed?
We have some restrictions because this type of work has to be done with what's called an in-water work window. And for the Sandy River, that's from July 15th to August 31st. And that's to be protective of the aquatic habitat. So all of these activities have to be focused on that time period
So it'll be done by the end of next summer, is that the hope?
by the end of this summer.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So it's going out soon. Thank you.
Nice job, and thanks for sticking around all day.
Thank you. Is there any public testimony on this item?
I believe he's already left, Mr. Sponberg.
sorry?
Mr. Sponberg left.
Okay, I don't see him here.
Mayor, I move to accept the report.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Fritz. Any further discussion before we call the roll? Call the roll.
Fish,
I just want to acknowledge we're using a lot of public money here to create more log jams. Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Wheeler.
I'd almost vote against it just because of the humor quotient not being up to snuff. Aye, the report is accepted. Thank you. Next item, please.
But these are engineered log jams.
There you go.
Item 600, accept bid of Titan Utilities LLC for the Southwest Vista Avenue Water Main Improvements Project for $630,365.
Good afternoon again. You have before you the procurement report recommending a contract award to Titan Utilities LLC for the Southwest Vista Water Main Improvement Project for $630,365. The engineer's estimate on this project was $655,000, and the Bureau's confidence level was high. On November 9, 2016, council approved ordinance 188083 for procurement services to competitively solicit the Southwest Vista Water Main Improvements Project. The project was advertised in the city's electronic procurement system, and bids were opened on February 14th, 2017. 4 bids were received, and responsible bidder at 600, and Titan Utilities is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder at $630,365, which is 3.8% under the engineer's estimate. The Portland Water Bureau, along with Procurement Services, identified an aspirational goal for certified DMWSB subcontractor and supplier utilization of 20% of the hard construction costs. There is a total of $127,290, or 20.2% DMW ESB subcontractor participation, apportioned as follows: DBE's doing $125,790 doing trucking, flagging, saw cutting, and testing, and ESB at $1,500 doing additional testing. Titan Utilities is located in Beaverton, Oregon, and is a state-certified DMW ESB contractor. They have a current City of Portland business tax registration number and in full compliance with the city's contracting requirements. The total participation of certified firms for this project, including the certified general contractor, is $606,549, which is 95.13%. Interestingly, it seems that the certified firms understand the value of the subcontractor equity programs and routinely subcontract work to other certified firms that they could in fact self-perform. If the council has any questions concerning the bidding process, I can answer that, or there are representatives from Portland Water Bureau here.
Very good. Any further questions? None yet. The perils of doing a procurement report late in the day. Any public testimony on
Carla,
this
does Mr. Sponberg wish to testify on this?
No, he did not.
I move the report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from the usual suspects in their respective orders. Please call the roll.
Fish.
Outstanding numbers on this. Thank you, team. Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
So I very much appreciate you calling attention to the contractor being willing to subcontract even though they could do it themselves. Some of our other major bidders could learn a lesson from that. Aye.
Yes, ma'am, they could.
Wheeler.
Always happy to see balance in terms of these coming in above or below original estimate. So thank you for providing that balance on the positive side here. Aye, the report is accepted. Call the next item, please.
Item
Thank you.
601, accept bid of Moore Excavation, Inc. for the Woodlawn King Street Sewer Rehabilitation Project for $5,726,410.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Christine Moody, Procurement Services. You have before you the procurement report recommending a contract award to Moore Excavation. The engineer's estimate on this project was $4,692,000 with a high confidence level. On April 4th, 2017, 5 bids were received, and Moore Excavation is the low bidder at $5,726,410.
You're screwing up my whole
What is
thesis.
that?
Yeah, you're screwing up my whole
I
plan.
have another one after this.
All right,
Maybe
good,
we should wait.
good.
It's 26% over the engineer's estimate. The Bureau of Environmental Services has evaluated the bid items, and the costs for mobilization, trench backfill, pipe, spot repair have increased due to local market conditions for materials and labor. BES accepts the proposed pricing as good. The city put forward an aspirational goal for DMW ESB subcontractor and supplier utilization at 20% of the hard construction costs for this project. Moore Excavation identified 5 divisions of work for DMW ESB opportunities with participation at 11.2%, or $640,538.67, with work being performed in trucking, saw cutting, traffic control, concrete, and erosion control. I will turn this back over to council. There are representatives from the contractor and BES here.
So, Christine, we've had this conversation before, but probably not with the 2 newest members of the council, so I just want to pose the question. In this instance, following the guidelines established by the city, the Bureau rated the project estimate confidence as high. But when the engineers do their estimating, technically they don't take into consideration market conditions. And so currently we are in a market where We know that there's, I heard from Willie Myers that the trades are at 150% of capacity. There's a crane on every corner. And as a result, according to the Portland Business Journal, you're starting to see inflation crop into bids and construction costs. Why? Because there's more work than available firms and bodies, and so we're bidding the prices up. And so could you just remind us, and this comes up periodically, but I don't know that we've had this conversation recently, this tension, could you address this tension between our estimating protocol and how you could get to a high estimate, but as you said, the bids came in above the estimates because of market conditions, and whether we should revise our guidelines for doing estimates to take into consideration market conditions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I think I'm not sure when this estimate was done, but what we're seeing here and BES is usually pretty good at doing things pretty close to when they're bidding them out. What we're seeing is that there's just rapid market changes. I mean, they're happening on a daily, weekly basis, and so even if there was an estimate that was done right before the bid going out, there's market conditions that could have changed. There are some representatives from BES that maybe can explain about this project.
Because it's been a long day, I'm happy just to plant the seed. But I mean, so in my conversations with the utilities, from time to time, when faced with a trend where it looks like the market is working against us, I've suggested downgrading the estimate from high to medium. And the look I get back is almost like I've committed an ethical public offense in suggesting to do that. And my thinking is, if we think the prices in the market are going to come in above the estimate, I don't want my engineers in a situation where they have to defend. Well, you said it's a high confidence, but now look, the bids are well above, so you obviously don't know what you're doing. Well, we don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know day to day what's happening in the market. But my understanding is that again, the protocols for estimating these projects really don't fully take into account market conditions. And so you could do your job, come in, say high probability, high confidence, but it could be that you're heading into a blizzard in terms of the market, in which case the prices are going to get bid up.
So in that case, Commissioner, I would agree with you. So if we do know that market conditions are changing and you do know that you're not going to have a contract and it's not going to bid out for a little while, then it would be appropriate to put medium in there.
It would be.
It seems to me, if you know that market conditions are changing, that you would put a medium.
So I may need to
level.
have you to come to one of our joint meetings, A, to defend me, and B, to help us understand how to do that.
So Nick, I think one of the contractors would also like to come up and add some commentary. Please come on up, sir, and if you could just state your name for the record.
I'm Gary Stevens.
No, not, you got to wait till you get up there.
Another thing that.
Can you state your name for the record?
Gary Stevens with Moore Excavation. I'm the operations manager.
Thank you.
One thing that also, in addition to market conditions, one thing that's greatly impacting our costs of doing work is the traffic congestion. If you envision, especially on a job like this project where there's a lot of open cut, we have to get rid of a lot of, we call it spoils or excavation. And you look at the 4 or 5 key areas that allow disposal of materials and pick up, it's either 190th and Division, Scappoose, or Tigard, or Canby. Well, the way the traffic's impacting our cycle times are greatly increasing as much as 25–30%. So that has a big impact on top of the market conditions of doing work.
Well, I'm going to make a motion, Mayor, that we pay for this gentleman's transportation costs to go down to Salem and testify in support of the state transportation bill. Because that's the argument we're now hearing from legislators outside the Portland area, that they're hearing that there are such challenges around freight mobility, and that our problem has become their problem.
And it's quite disturbing to hear that there's really, I envision that the counties, the cities, the state, and Metro, we're all working on this great plan to eventually have a solution to our traffic congestion in the metro area. But I was informed by Mr. Wheeler a year ago when he came and spoke to our Utility Contractors Association. He knew who the audience was, and he immediately said before we started, if you think there's a plan in place, there's not, which is really disturbing for our industry. The cost of business, if you can imagine each one of those dump trucks costing $125 to $130 an hour, and when you have 10 or 15 of them on the road and they're sitting on I-5 not moving, the cost of business to us is astronomical.
Well,
Plus-
and you're suggesting, you're making the case that those costs are then borne by our ratepayers.
it's a pass-through.
We
It's a
have to
pass-through.
pass them on to you.
So-
Unfortunately, but I guess my point is several. It's not only, yes, market prices have gone up on materials greatly. Yes, labor is going up, but there's other variables such as traffic, cycle time, putting more trucks on to be able to just get, you've got a crew over here trying to get production and you don't have the trucks there that they can load out. So you've got to add more trucks that are stuck in traffic.
Well, thank you for that, sir. That's very helpful.
Yeah,
Good
that is
context.
Appreciate that very much.
Get off my soapbox here for a minute. but-
That was a good soapbox. Thank you.
We'll try to find out who this Wheeler guy was who said that to you, because that's just
Boy, it burst
speaking
my
for the
bubble a
council,
week
it's
ago, or
outrageous.
a year ago. so-
It's outrageous.
It's good to know I was depressing a year ago, too. I haven't changed. Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. So I really appreciate the details in the impact statement, that there's 7 different parts of the bid broken out to explain why it was more or less, and that's clear for anybody who's wondering, so congratulations on that. Just going back to the previous agenda item, though, were there other opportunities for subcontracting that Moore Excavation chose to do itself?
That's right.
Yes.
We identified 10 categories, and we solicited 55 different contractors. We only received 11 responses in 5 categories. So we only received 11 out of 55 solicitations, 20%. 5 were no response at all in 5 categories. 3 were just 1 response. 1 was 2 responses, and then we got 6 trucker, which sort of inflated the response. This totals, our dollar amount of $640,000 from this contract equates to 50% of our subcontracted amount for this job, which a year ago, if you remember, we had a 35% goal of subcontracted amount, but we changed it to 20% gross of the contract.
The city changed their policy.
The city changed their policy.
Yes, we did.
So I'm saying a year ago, the city policy was 35% of the subcontract, and this equates to 50%. So if this would have taken place a year ago, we would have greatly surpassed the subcontracted amount.
That's
Well,
why
I
we
appreciate-
changed our policy, Gary.
Yeah, that's why we changed the policy, and that's
I'm
actually
curious.
that's not the question I was asking.
Oh.
Were there potentially other tasks that you chose not to put out as subcontracting possibilities?
We solicit like I say, 10 scopes of work, asphalt paving, saw cutting, concrete work, hauling services, traffic control, erosion control, video TV, cured in place, manhole rehab, pest control. And like I said, out of those 10, we had 5 no responses at all in those categories.
I'm not being clear, obviously. You identified the categories. Could there have been other categories that could have been bid out, but Moore Excavation chose to self-perform?
I don't know of any.
That's all the subcontracting possibilities that there are?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So, and I just wanted to address, one of the reasons we did change our policy is because of 35% on subcontracting. If you were not subcontracting, you were self-performing all the work, it was easy to make the percentage, but there was not dollars actually going to minority and women businesses. So that was the emphasis on us changing the policy to the overall project value so that there would be more meaningful opportunities for minority and women businesses.
And so we're not meeting that because out of 5.7 million, only about 640,000, and 5 million to the prime contractor and a smaller amount to subcontractors. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so our goal is an aspirational goal. It's not a requirement.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Are there, when you're considering the bids, does that factor into which bids you accept as to how much minority subcontracting there is?
Unfortunately, we cannot view, since it's an aspirational goal, it is not a responsiveness issue. There's other ways that we can kind of go around trying to increase participation, but it is not a responsiveness issue.
I see. Thank you. And obviously, Mayor, it's one of the crucial things that we still need to work on with our equity policies and our work is this issue of where does the money go. So thank you very much.
Very good, thank you. Yes, sir.
If I may say one thing, another thing that in the marketplace, because of the robust economy, we're competing against the private work that's going on in the Tri-County area. And there's a lot of that. I mean, even ourselves, we turn a lot of work away that we just can't accommodate. And a lot of these minority contractors are doing private work because it's easier paperwork-wise, if you will. They don't have to comply with apprenticeship and all that other requirements. Not saying that those are bad, but reality sets in. It's easier to do private work than it is public work, wages, et cetera. So that's another factor.
But we're hearing that, sir, also from the building trades. I mean, they're at 100%, and they're bringing people in from outside the state, so there are capacity issues. But that also then gives us an opportunity. If you flip that around, one of the things we could be thinking about is how can we grow more qualified firms to compete for this work? And what you hear from a lot of the smaller firms is access to capital, being able to get bonding, other
Correct.
kinds of things. So if
Correct.
we want to create more opportunity, we also have to think about creating more players that can actually come in and compete.
Well, one area that you can help that is not having the city self-perform as much work as they do, and issue more of that to the minority contractors, because the city self-performs a lot of work. You've heard of it before, the amount of paving that PBOT does and et cetera. If they would set aside some of that work, more of that work to minority contractors, they would be able to accomplish those goals.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate that. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Well, we have a testimony.
That's fine here. Well, we have a motion and a second, I'm predicting.
Yeah.
Second.
Very good. Oh, we're dicing it up. Now we'll take public testimony if there is any.
Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
Here he comes, the man, the myth, the legend.
Well, since we still have a few more items to go, should
Charles,
we
we're
go
going
to
to
2
lose a
minutes?
quorum here. Is this?
Yeah.
It'll be brief, yeah, and it's on, because it's your fault for letting the great contractor testify about one of the most problematic issues here, especially for the people who will be coming tomorrow. For the record, Charles Bridge Crane Johnson. I don't know about I'm not an expert on the material and the disposal and what options are available at Ross Island Cement, or where this particular work site is located in relation to 197th, but dirty diesel trips in Washington Park, dirty diesel trips here. So I think as you look at the comprehensive greenness of city contracting, maybe ways to incentivize. I know it's a rough balance between minority contractors who sometimes have older equipment, and also maybe there's room for innovation in thinking about, I don't know the nature of the excavation at Ross Island and what can be taken there as far as if they can take in as well as send out materials or reuse there. But I think that might be a contributing factor for some projects' cycle time, if especially in urban core projects, if they have removal of material that cannot be, is not going to be used on site. If there are closer places at 197th, that's better for air quality. So there's some room for innovation here. Also, maybe with the College of Urban Studies. Earlier, Mr. Fish, you raised the topic of getting maybe more comfortable degrees of certainties about the financial costs, and to open that up for both the tech community and the academic community to interact with the city is an opportunity engine for the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And anyway, call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The report's accepted. We have 3 more items. We're going to lose our quorum fairly quickly, so I'm going to ask that we limit public testimony to 1 minute for the last 3 items, but I will not be a jerk about it. But if we can keep it short so we don't lose the quorum, I'd appreciate it. Next item, please.
Item 602, accept bid of Raymore Construction LLC for the Whitaker Ponds entry improvements for $600,432.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners.
Hello, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. My name is Lauren McGuire. I'm here as the Development Program Manager for Portland Parks. And with me is Allison Rouse, who's the Capital Project Manager for this project, Whitaker Ponds, and also, of course, Christine Moody, our Procurement Officer. We're here today to request that Council accept a bid from Raymore Construction for Whitaker Ponds Entry Improvement Project. It's located at 7040 Northeast 47th Avenue, just across Columbia Boulevard from the Cully neighborhood, for the amount of $600,432. Whitaker Ponds Nature Park is a 25-acre natural area located on Northeast 47th, amid largely industrial development. It's a natural treasure. It's very popular for nature-based activities like bird watching and kayaking, and it also hosts many environmental education programs. PP&R and our on-site partner, the Columbia Slough Watershed Council, provide a variety of volunteer stewardship and maintenance activities in this location. However, the access is challenging. You can see in the lower left-hand corner of the slide, there's no parking other than the muddy shoulder and no sidewalks along 47th. And that's a busy and important freight street. So our project goals for this project include parking and safer pedestrian access along Northeast 47th and fully accessible pathways to site amenities and an inviting entrance.
Could you go back to the map so I can look at that for just
Sure.
1 second?
You can see 47th.
47th is there to the left.
Right.
Okay, where is the improved sidewalk going to be? Is it just in the red box, or is it
It's
green?
going to be actually on both sides of the street between Columbia Boulevard and Cornfoot.
Very good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, that's fine, totally. So this rendering illustrates the proposed Whitaker Ponds entry improvements. North is to the left, and the two ponds are to the north, to the top of the image. At the bottom is 47th, so we've turned the image a little bit here. The project will develop the entrance with a nature park, a 22-space parking lot that you can see in yellow there. It has 2 ADA spaces to the right, and then 2 bus parking spaces that are highlighted in yellow at the top of the parking area. We also have parking lot lighting in that area. That's primarily to help us manage a kind of a persistent petty crime issue that we have there. We're also going to be, you can see the white areas there. Those are connecting the parking area, their sidewalks, to the existing site amenities, like the Slough Watershed facility at the right, and the pond overlook and boardwalk. Also in green now is the small gathering area, which has casual Boulder-style seating. And then we have a plaza with furnishings that have a bike rack and benches. And then finally, a stormwater facility in the middle of the parking lot area.
Is the parking that you've identified here that we're building, will that be metered parking?
No.
Why is
This
that?
is Allison Rouse. No.
Why not?
Why not? Good question.
Well, I mean, before.
I don't know.
We charge, I mean, there's a number of places where we charge people in Washington Park, we charge people in the area around Hannah, the new pump station we're going to be opening. So I'm just curious, why wouldn't we charge people here to recover some of the cost of providing parking?
That is a new idea, in my understanding. However, I would point out that the places where the Parks Bureau has metered parking are very, very dense, where there's a lot of competition for the parking, whereas this area is in industrial Northeast Portland and will be not at all dense. We don't expect any competition for the parking here.
Okay, but just in terms of the planning, it was not designed to be metered parking. Obviously, that's something you could revisit in the
Correct,
future if it
correct.
turned out that you had some cost issues.
Mhm.
of maintaining it.
Totally true. You'll also see down at the bottom of the slide now, the area of the right-of-way work along Northeast 47th that PBOT will be doing. We'll be doing this as part of a local improvement district with PBOT. And they'll be doing improvements on both sides of the road from Columbia Boulevard, like, as I said, all the way to Cornfoot. As far as our public process goes, the project is implementing one of the projects proposed in the 2006 master plan for the natural area. It was conducted with significant public process at that time. In 2012, Parks BES and the Columbia Slough Watershed Council conducted a conceptual design process for the entry project, and this project started with that 2012 concept as its basis. The public process focused on the entry design, included an open house to get feedback on the proposed design. The open house was preceded by an English and Spanish outreach campaign to the Cully neighborhood, to Verde, and to the Native American Youth Academy. It also included door-to-door outreach to the immediate neighbors, briefings of the Columbia Watershed Council and the Native American Community Advisory Council. And we also consulted with the Audubon Society in particular concerning the design and of the parking lot lighting so that we wouldn't degrade the wildlife habitat. Also, we also always do website updates and email notifications, as with all of our projects. The total estimated project cost for these improvements is basically about $2.2 million, of which $1 million is our contribution to PBOT's local improvement district to rebuild 47th Avenue, and the remainder, $1.2 million approximately, is the estimated total cost for the design, the permitting, the administration, and the construction of the entry improvements. This project is also made possible through the support of Metro's Nature and Neighborhoods grant, and also SDC funds, as you see up on the screen. The project timeline, we're going to break ground in June, and then we expect to be finished in September, October. PBOT, their work is going to start in January and run through July of 2018. As far as the improvements for PBOT, they couldn't be here today, so I'm going to try and pitch hit for them. PBOT's doing reconstruction of a failed asphalt roadway. They're going to be doing it in concrete because it's a freight road, and they expect it to last for generations. They will reconstruct and extend stormwater and sanitary sewer, including replacing a 92-year-old cast iron water main. They will also be doing full pedestrian and bicycle connections on both sides of the street, as we talked about earlier, to connect underserved Cully to jobs in the Columbia corridor. They will be providing a crossing, a signalized mid-block crossing as well to protect the vulnerable pedestrians coming across the street. And the design is compliant with AASHTO and Freight District standards.
Okay. So what Lauren explained was the overall project, but what is before you today is the procurement report recommending a contract award to Raymore Construction. The engineer's estimate on this project was $606,000 with a confidence level of medium. On April 11th, 2017, 4 bids were received, and Raymore Construction is the low bidder at $600,432. Portland Parks and Recreation. So close.
Yeah.
So close.
We're the middle of the road
So
there.
each one today, one's been over, one's been under. So Portland Parks and Recreation has reviewed the bid items and accepts the proposed pricing. The city put forward an aspirational goal for DMW ESB subcontractor and supplier utilization at 20% of the hard construction cost. Raymore Construction identified 4 divisions of work for DMW ESB participation, with subcontracting participation at 31%, with work being performed in electrical, surveys, asphalt paving, and striping. Raymore Construction is a certified minority disadvantaged business, so the total combined DMWSB on this project is 95%.
Well done, yeah.
Excellent, thank you, appreciate it. And
that concludes the presentation.
Very good, excellent. Any questions of the panel before we call for public testimony? Very good, public testimony.
No one signed up.
Move to
Move
accept
the report.
Commissioner Daly moves, Commissioner
Second.
Fischel second this time. We'll just give her the win today. Please call the roll.
Fish,
Nice job. Aye.
Udaly,
I forgot to thank Commissioner Fish for finally rehabbing the sewers in my neighborhood. Sorry, that was a prior item. Aye.
Fritz.
I've been pondering Commissioner Fish's question about parking meters, and I can't think of any paid street parking or off-road cycling that's further away than the Lloyd district. So that might be a conversation that we would have as we start getting even more and more vehicles on the road. But I think enforcement in a remote area like this that's not connected with other areas might be cost prohibitive. Other than that, thank you very much, ladies, for all of your work. Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the report's accepted. Thanks, looks great. Next item, please.
Item 603, authorize a borrowing of not more than $44,312,000 in anticipation of the Fire and Police Disability and Retirement Fund levy for fiscal year 2017-18.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. This emergency ordinance authorizes the issuance of up to $44,312,000 in tax anticipation notes to fund FPD&R's annual cash flow deficit. As you will recall from past years, the city issues tax anticipation notes each year to fund FPD&R expenses incurred in a fiscal year prior to receipt of property tax revenues in late November. It's because FPD&R cannot legally carry over sufficient fund balances to pay these early fiscal year expenses, it's necessary to issue tax anticipation notes to avoid a cash flow deficit. We expect to sell the tax anticipation notes in early July, and the notes will be repaid by June 30th of 2018. Happy to answer any questions.
And how much does it cost for us to do that?
Pardon?
What are the interest or the costs to doing that?
Right now, the we call one-year note index is about 0.85, so I'd say 0.85 to 1% interest rate for the one-year borrowing.
Thank you.
Tell that to my credit card company.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Very good. Any further questions before we go to public testimony? Public testimony?
No one signed up.
Call the roll. Call the roll.
Fish.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Well, we do this every year, and thank you for your work. Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Appreciate it. Last item, I believe. I got
Item
that
604, authorize $220,922,137 million of general obligation bonds for affordable housing projects.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Eric Johansson, City Debt Manager. This emergency ordinance does authorize $220.9 million approximately of additional general obligation debt to fund affordable housing costs. As you may recall, on May 18th, the city closed its first series of bonds under last November's GO bond authorization to fund a portion of the cost of acquiring the Ellington apartments. This ordinance will authorize the issuance of the remaining authority under last November's bond measure. While the ordinance authorizes issuing the remaining authority, the actual debt issuance is expected to occur over a multi-year period. The financing plan, which has been a joint effort of the Housing Bureau and Debt Management, calls for the establishment of a revolving line of credit in the approximate amount of $75 million. This line of credit, when established, will be available to be drawn upon on short notice to respond to acquisition and development opportunities as they arise. At such time as a sufficiently large balance has been accumulated on the line of credit, we'll issue long-term bonds to take out the line of credit. Amounts that are repaid from long-term bonds will then be available to be reborrowed under the line of credit. The total amount of new money bonds that may be issued cannot exceed the $220.9 million. A final provision in this ordinance is that a requirement that before any projects are funded, either through the line of credit or through long-term debt, council must specifically authorize the use of the GO bonds for that particular project. So whether that's through a resolution, ordinance, or other council action, we'll want to make sure that that's gotten specific approval from council before moving forward with the borrowing.
Thank you. Any further questions? Commissioner Fritz?
I have a question for you, Mayor, actually.
Uh-oh.
What is the process for doing that? Because I know when we've bought the Parks bond to council, we've had a specific list. Yes. What will be the process for council reviewing how to spend this $220 million?
That's a good question. I don't know yet.
I don't
We'll
think
sort
any
it
of us
out, get it back to you. Yeah.
So, and the reason we're doing this is to get the money as quickly as possible because we need to get the stuff built as quickly as possible. Is that?
That's correct.
Yeah, thanks.
Good. Any other questions? Public testimony?
Charles Bridge Crane Johnson.
Very good. This is our last item, is that correct? Good, thanks. While he's coming up, I'll just remind people, tomorrow afternoon's agenda has changed. The item 609 on tomorrow afternoon's agenda was originally scheduled for 2 p.m. That's the 100% renewable energy proposal. That will be heard at 3 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday, June 1st, instead of 2 p.m. Sorry for the interruption.
Chag Sameach. My name is Charles Johnson. I know we can all look forward to Commissioner Schultzman bringing us a lot of cheesecake when he comes back. It's a traditional food for Pentecost, Shavuot. With the project for the housing bond, I think one thing that needs to influence our conversations as we go forward is a number of local healthcare providers did a collaboration. I can't remember if it was around $20 million or $60 million about trying to put some new units into the market. And, it's interesting. We don't know how we're going to spend this, exactly what we're going to do, but the bond was sort of marketed as, I can't remember now, 1,300 units or 1,300 families. But there was a disparity for anybody who did the basic math about the per unit cost that the coalition of healthcare providers is getting and the coalition, and what was projected with the rough estimate of the bond and that 1,300 number. So I hope that with the former state treasurer on board and Commissioner Schultzman's back influence, we can look at an arc that will give us a possibility to go beyond the 1,300 projection and still maintain the type of quality of units that we're getting in the Pearl with the permanent concrete steel construction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, conversation? Please call the roll.
Fish.
So this is my understanding of what we're doing today. We are authorizing at some point in the future debt management to issue debt up to $220 million so that we can invest in affordable housing development. The bond measure actually has some very specific criteria around who we serve and at what income level. We've also established an oversight body whose task it will be to provide advice to council on projects as they come up. And the mayor, I think, has also established a technical committee of people who are going to help us shape some guidelines for what kinds of projects could be eligible in the future. So this is like authorizing a line of credit so that we can be nimble and act when the council's ready to. But my understanding from the bond and from the ordinance before us is that it is all subject to the consultations, the guidelines, and ultimately council direction. So with that understanding, I vote aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you. We're adjourned.